Welcome to The Deep Dive. We sift through the critical sources so you get the core story. Today, we are tackling, well, perhaps the boldest diplomatic move we've seen lately, that detailed 20-point peace plan for Gaza, announced September 29th, 2025, by President Trump and Prime Minister Netanyahu.
Yeah, and it's incredibly complex. The sources lay out this intricate blueprint, everything from stopping the fighting immediately to how Gaza might be governed long term. But the context, it's really about the speed, this near impossible deadline, and the sharply divided reactions on the ground.
Okay.
So our job here is to quickly unpack the mechanics of the deal, what exactly is being traded, and pinpoint those sticking points, the things that will make or break this.
And the urgency is just intense. Trump didn't just lay out a plan, he attached a fuse, gave Hamas 3 to 4 days, that's it, to say yes. And the warning: rejection means a very sad end, they'll pay in hell. That threat is hanging over absolutely everything. It feels less like diplomacy, more like a high-stakes ultimatum, really. Military, political, all rolled into one. Okay, so let's get into this trade-off, starting with the immediate actions. What happens first?
Right, so the first part, stage one, it's all about that initial 72-hour window, the hostage for prisoner swap and stopping the combat operations.
Okay, so if both sides agree, the war just stops instantly.
That's the plan, an immediate stop. Israeli forces pull back to an agreed line, getting ready for the hostage release. And crucially, while that's happening, all military actions, airstrikes, artillery, everything are suspended.
Right.
Battle lines frozen.
And the core demand on Hamas? The hostages.
Yes, all hostages. Alive and, tragically, the deceased, too. They have to be returned within 72 hours of Israel publicly saying yes to the deal. That's a huge lift logistically, and it's the main pressure point.
72 hours. Wow. And what's Israel offering in return for getting everyone back?
It's broken down very specifically.
Sure.
3 main groups of prisoners. First, Israel releases 250 prisoners who are serving life sentences. These are individuals Hamas values highly, politically.
Okay, that's significant. What else?
Second, and this is maybe even more significant for Gazans right now, Israel releases 1,700 people detained after October 7th, 2023.
So people picked up during this recent intense phase of the conflict.
Exactly. And the sources are clear. This includes all women and children detained in that context. This really speaks to the internal pressure Hamas must be under regarding thousands arrested during the war.
That makes sense. So that 72-hour clock isn't just about the hostages. It's also about potentially getting 1,700 people, including women and kids, back home almost immediately. That's quite an incentive.
It is. And there's a third part, the remains. For every Israeli hostage's remains returned, Israel will release the remains of 15 deceased Gazans. That 15-to-1 ratio, it's clearly a negotiated point baked into this.
Right. Okay, so that covers the immediate exchange. What about aid? The humanitarian situation must be desperate.
Critical. The plan mandates an immediate, full-scale surge in humanitarian aid the moment there's acceptance. Quantities have to match what was agreed back in January 2025, which was already a significant increase.
And this isn't just food and medicine.
No, it includes materials for rebuilding infrastructure, water, electricity, sewage systems, getting hospitals and bakeries back online, basic survival stuff.
And who controls this aid? That's always a sticking point.
Yeah, they've thought about that. The plan says distribution will be managed only by the UN, the Red Crescent, and other recognized international bodies. Explicitly says neither the Israeli military nor Hamas can interfere.
Trying to create a neutral channel right from the start.
Exactly. Keep it purely humanitarian, not a political football. And, it also starts to limit Hamas's control over those essential services.
Which leads us straight into the next big piece, segment 2, the longer game. Because, okay, the exchange happens, aid flows, but then what? How is Gaza actually governed? The vision is stark. A de-radicalized, terror-free zone.
Yes, but it also includes important reassurances for Palestinians. It explicitly states Israel will not occupy or annex Gaza. That's aimed at a major international fear. And crucially, no forced displacement. People who want to leave can, the safe passage, but the goal is for Palestinians to stay and rebuild.
But the absolute core demand, the one that seems like a complete non-starter for Hamas, is point 13.
That's the one, unequivocal. Hamas gets no role in governing Gaza in the future, not directly, not indirectly. And all their military capacity tunnels, weapons factories must be destroyed permanently.
Total demilitarization.
It's not just giving up weapons, it's dismantling the entire military and political reason for the organization's existence, really. And dealing with the individuals, there's this well, controversial amnesty exile provision.
Wait, hang on. It says Hamas members just need to commit to peaceful coexistence and hand over weapons to get amnesty in 3 days. How on earth do you verify that? That sounds aspirational at best.
You're right to flag that. It does seem logistically almost impossible in that time frame. The sources kind of suggest it's maybe more about offering an immediate off-ramp, Avoid a bloodbath or a mass arrest right away. The choice becomes amnesty if you surrender and sign up for peace, or safe passage out of Gaza if you choose exile. The actual long-term vetting seems pushed down the road to the next phase of governance.
Okay, so who is this next phase of governance? Who's actually running things day to day?
It's designed as a multi-layered transition. For immediate public services, water, electricity, basic infrastructure, there's a plan for a technocratic, apolitical Palestinian committee made up of vetted local Palestinians and international experts.
So like a functional city management team focused on just getting things running, not politics.
Pretty much. Think of them as the COO, maybe.
Yeah.
But they report upwards. They're supervised by a new, powerful international body called the Board of Peace. And this is where the politics gets dialed way up.
Okay. The Board of Peace. Who's on it?
Well, this is the headline grabber. It's to be headed and chaired by President Donald J. Trump.
Wow. Okay. President Trump chairing the board overseeing Gaza's reconstruction. That puts the U.S. president directly in the driver's seat. Strategically, financially. That's a massive personal commitment.
It's unprecedented, really. Direct executive involvement, not just advisory. And another member named as former UK Prime Minister Tony Blair.
Tony Blair, given his history in the region, his negative reputation, as some sources put it, among Palestinians, doesn't putting him on this Board of Peace immediately raise red flags about its neutrality?
It absolutely does for many observers, especially Palestinian analysts. His presence signals to them a kind of Western interventionism they deeply distrust. The board's job is basically to control the redevelopment money, billions of dollars, until the Palestinian Authority is reformed and deemed ready and secure enough to take over. So yeah, the U.S. with Trump chairing holds the purse strings in the political direction until specific conditions are met.
And what about security on the ground? If Hamas is demilitarized, who keeps order? Who secures the borders?
A temporary international stabilization force, an ISF, is supposed to deploy immediately. Sources suggest it would involve U.S., Arab, and European troops, a complex coalition.
Okay.
Their job is twofold: secure the borders with Israel and Egypt, and critically, train up vetted Palestinian police forces to eventually take over internal security. The Israeli Defense Forces would withdraw gradually, but the plan does give them the right to maintain a security perimeter presence until Gaza is certified as, permanently free from terror threats.
The logistics there, coordinating U.S., Arab, European forces outside while training new Palestinian police inside, all starting potentially within days. That seems extraordinarily ambitious.
Ambitious is putting it mildly. It basically ties the military withdrawal timeline to non-military progress governance reform, successful police training, which gives that Board of Peace, chaired by Trump, enormous leverage.
Right. Okay. So we have this incredibly detailed plan, personally backed by the U.S. president. But now we hit segment 3, the friction, the contradictions, because the global reaction seems quite different from the reaction on the ground.
That's the crux of it. You have this remarkable international alignment forming, but the key players inside the conflict zone are pulling hard in opposite directions. Let's start with Hamas. A senior official flatly said they won't accept the demilitarization part. Full stop.
Not surprising, perhaps.
No. And allied groups, like Islamic Jihad, went further, called it a recipe to blow up the region, a colonial plan to wipe them out.
And what about ordinary Gazans or Palestinian analysts looking at this?
Deep skepticism. We're seeing terms like colonial contract, completely biased to Israel, impossible conditions, the whole structure, Trump chairing, Blair involved. Many see it as just enforcing Israeli security demands under an international flag.
Which brings us to maybe the biggest internal clash: Palestinian statehood. Point 19 talks about a credible pathway to self-determination and statehood.
That sounds like the necessary carrot, right? To get international buy-in.
It seems like it. It offers a political horizon contingent on Gaza's redevelopment and reforming the Palestinian Authority.
But
then you look at Prime Minister Netanyahu's reaction. Yes, he stood there with Trump and accepted the 20 points. But almost immediately after, he publicly contradicted point 19, stated flat out that a Palestinian state would not be established under this plan.
seriously, he said that publicly.
Explicitly, and maybe even more pointedly, said the IDF would remain in most of the Gaza Strip, which seems to completely undercut the idea of a sovereign, independent Palestinian entity emerging from this.
So he signed on to a plan mentioning a pathway to statehood, then immediately told his domestic audience, don't worry, it's not happening. How does that work? Why would the PA or Arab states trust the pathway if the Israeli leader denies it's the destination? It really forces you to question what Point 19 actually is. Is it a genuine goal? Or is it maybe just the diplomatic language needed to achieve the primary objectives, getting the hostages back and demilitarizing Gaza?
Yeah.
For the Palestinian Authority, who did welcome Trump's sincere efforts, they seem willing to take the deal's structure, the conditions, the border peace oversight, perhaps, because it keeps the possibility of statehood alive, even if Netanyahu denies it.
It's incredibly messy. Yet, despite these huge internal gaps, you said the global reaction was positive.
Overwhelmingly so, it seems. Europe was largely on board. Germany called it the best chance. France, UK, Italy, Spain all welcomed it.
And the region. The Arab states whose support is vital.
That's maybe the most striking part. A joint statement came out supporting the efforts from a really key group: Saudi Arabia, UAE, Egypt, Turkey, Qatar, Jordan, Indonesia, Pakistan.
That's a significant bloc. Saudi Arabia, Turkey, Egypt, Qatar, all backing this U.S.-led effort.
Yeah, the reasons are complex. Certainly regional stability, countering Iran, ending the humanitarian crisis, but their alignment behind this specific structure, led by the U.S., is a major diplomatic win for the plan's proponents.
So let's try and synthesize this for you, the listener. What we have is this huge international push, real consensus that this is the way forward, the best shot at ending the war. But the two groups who actually have to say yes on the ground, Hamas and arguably Netanyahu's own political base in Israel, are fundamentally opposed to the core trade-offs. Demilitarization for Hamas and eventual statehood, it seems, for Netanyahu's side.
Precisely. This deal puts Hamas in an agonizing position. Give up your entire military and political reason for being, in exchange for getting 1,700 prisoners back immediately, a flood of aid, and Israeli withdrawal, but under the oversight of an international body chaired by President Trump. And that clock is ticking down from 3 or 4 days.
It's an immense amount of pressure packed into a tiny window. Thank you for joining us for this deep dive into the mechanics and the stark contradictions of this Gaza peace proposal.
You know, the real leverage here is that deadline. If that clock actually starts, those 1,700 Gazan detainees, including all the women and children arrested since the war began, are supposedly walking free within days. Think about the immense pressure that puts on Hamas leadership from the families from within Gaza. Does that urgency, the very human need to free those specific people, make the demand for total demilitarization something they might negotiate? Or is giving up their weapons, their tunnels, is that just an absolute existential line they cannot cross no matter what? That's the question to ponder.